shows you what we think how this industry can be. Very quickly, I have been with Temasek now for over 13 years. I started out with Temasek in India when Temasek opened its first overseas office, which most people don't know, but it was in Mumbai. And then we opened an office in Beijing 6 months later. So I joined back then and have been with the firm since then. I've done multiple things, starting out with setting up our India office, then eventually moving as part of a team that set up our Africa and Middle Eastern business. And 6 years ago, me and another colleague of mine, Tan Swan Sui, we had done a couple of investments in food and agriculture, and we realized that there is so much more to this value chain than what meets the eye. As a consumer, you see the end product, the food that comes on your plate, but it really goes through this massive transformation from the farm to all the way to what you see on the plate. And there is a lot of richness, there's a lot of things that are right about it, and there are a lot of things that we don't know and are wrong about it. And as we went into that journey, we realized that it's an area that Temasek should look into, and we went into that sector and formed a small team. And fast forward 6 years later, here we are. We'll talk about some of the statistics, but we have over 30 investments in this sector. We have invested over $5 billion into the sector. But more importantly, as I said, it really connects to the purpose that we stand for, which is doing well as an investor, but also doing good, whether it's for the planet, whether it's for the wider stakeholders, and doing it in the right way. And this is one sector we feel very good about meeting our ethos because of what we are trying to achieve over here. So that's my journey with Temasek. We have a team of about 13 people located around the world who work closely to invest and to work with our portfolio companies to add value. We also think that this is a very interesting time for Singapore, because Singapore over the last 3 years has really caught on to the innovations that are happening in the food and agriculture space. And we have a burgeoning ecosystem that has now started to happen over here. Temasek's playing a small role into it, but really that has been carried by the various government agencies, whether it's the EDB, ESG. A-Star has very, very interesting innovations that they have done, Temasek Life Sciences Laboratories as well. And then as a result of this, all these young people who are now taking this and starting companies, whether it's Shop Meats, whether it's Alchemy, so we're seeing this ecosystem coming together over here. So I'll take you through some of the activities of Temasek, and feel free to ask us questions about that. So just stick to the previous slide. I'll just go there. So as I said, since 2011, we have increased our focus on food and agriculture broadly. We call it agribusiness. Sometimes the nomenclature is difficult to describe this sector. What we really look at it is all the way from the farm to the fork, the entire food value chain. And what's interesting about this food value chain is that it is highly interconnected. You know, whether you talk about animal proteins, whether you talk about crops, there is an inherent connection in various things. And eventually, the food that is produced in the farm goes through a series of transformations, reaches the consumer, becomes waste, and that waste can again be circled back into the farm and the food economy. We have, as I said, we have invested in over 30 agri-food companies, and we have invested over $5 billion into this sector across these companies. So, as I said, our themes of investments are, we categorize into three different categories. One is around innovation. These are early stage companies, the companies that probably have a business model that they are testing out. We will get into them as an early investor, work with them to scale up their product, take it to the market. A good example is a company, Impossible Foods, whose products I'm sure you all have tried in Singapore and other parts of the world. They are widely available now in Singapore as well. And another company is Farmer Business Network, which is really what we think is the answer to agricultural's digital needs. So this company probably will have a slide later on to talk about it, but it is an Alibaba, Facebook, and an Amazon for agriculture. So farmers can buy their inputs online, their seeds, their agrochemical needs in the United States. They then can share information with each other, which is social media, where important decisions get made. And then eventually they can actually market their product on an online platform, reaching to the processors, to the consumers out there. This is one of the unicorns in the United States, and we are working closely with them to bring this model to smallholder growers in Asia as well. The second kind of businesses that Temasek invests in are growth businesses. We typically define growth businesses as companies which have figured out the product market combination and have a clear product market strategy. They know what market they're going for, what product they're going for. They have economics that work, unit economics that work, and now the question really is, how do you scale it up? So our capital usually in these companies go to expand capacity, do small acquisitions, but really a business model that has been proven, and then take it to the next level in terms of the ability to grow out there. So a company we invested in India is a company called Godrej Agrovet. Godrej is a very, very well-known group in India, over 100-year legacy, one of the most trusted brands coming into India. And we invested in them in order to help them grow in new sectors such as dairy, such as input distribution. And then Volo Agri is a company that produces vegetable seeds for greenhouses. These are very high-value vegetable seeds, cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. What is very interesting about Volo Agri, the seeds that it produces, they get sold at a price which is 3 times the price of gold in terms of kilograms. So these seeds are really inherently the genesis of a plant, and if you have high quality seeds, you create high quality outputs out of that. And so these seeds are so valuable that they are priced very highly, but of course they give a return to the farmer who uses those seeds, but high value seeds. And then, we also invest in companies which are down the curve, and with these companies, typically our role is more of a transformation where we will work with these companies to either take them to newer markets, whether it's in Asia, which we think we understand, or help them do large acquisitions or transformative acquisitions. So Bor Malt is one of the largest malt producers. As you know, malt goes into drinks, both alcoholic beer and whiskey, but also into malt drinks that we have in this part of the world, in other parts as well, healthy drinks for kids. And it's barley which gets processed into malt. Bor Malt is a Belgian company, and we worked with them closely to do an acquisition of Cargill's malt business, creating the world's largest malt producer, which has operations in Africa, in Australia, in Asia, of course Europe and United States as well. Very interesting fact about malt is as craft breweries and craft beers are becoming more and more prevalent, the malt consumption is actually increasing. And the big differentiation between a craft brewery and a normal brewery is really the hops and the malt they use. Otherwise, the process is very, very similar. It's a fermentation process using very standard ingredients out there. Siva is an animal health company which produces vaccines to deal with diseases, emerging diseases in pigs, in chicken. Very progressive company out of France as well. So these are some of the examples of companies that Temasek has invested in. Our core themes for investments are where the demand is and where the growth is. We believe that, and especially we see those trends from an Asian lens, but also from a global lens. We believe that the world needs more sustainable proteins. We have a protein deficit around the world with a growing population, 10 billion people by 2050. While we have a problem in the West where probably we might be over-consuming certain kinds of proteins, we definitely in Asia and Africa need to feed better diets, especially to children. Stuntedness is a big issue. It's not physical stuntedness. It's actually the problem is the mental issues that happen with stuntedness, and we have a big epidemic here, which protein consumption will be able to solve. But we also need to produce proteins in an environmentally sustainable manner, and that is really the challenge associated with that. We've invested in alternate protein companies. We continue to believe that certain kinds of proteins like chicken and aquaculture are reasonably sustainable. They are not as environmentally damaging. Finally, food does have an environmental footprint. The second one is around fresh produce. We all, order more salads. We eat more avocados. We eat more berries. Most of if you weren't, if you didn't grow up in Europe, or if you did not grow up in the United States, you weren't eating a raspberry for breakfast. But now that's part of our diets, whether you're in Asia, whether you're in other parts of the world. The fresh produce trend is quite strong. Over 5% growth in this market, especially on higher value fresh produce, avocados, berries, leafy greens. We believe that supply chain offers a lot of interesting opportunities for investments as well. The third one is around ingredients, food ingredients. Packaged food is made of several ingredients. Even food service, when we go in, there are many ingredients that go into it. Some of these ingredients are whole foods that we use. Some of them are processed foods that we use. These ingredients have a functional requirement. They have a health benefit certain times, but some of them are are also not good. And the industry and various players are working towards better formulations of those ingredients. So we look at investing in ingredients that are healthy and growing. And then finally, as Temasek, we believe that if we have to solve the three challenges that the global food system faces, which is more food, we definitely need that. We need better food, because our food is, while a solution, it is also causing certain problems, whether obesity in the West, malnutrition in certain parts of the world. So we need better food, which is the second problem. And the third one is we need food which has less environmental impact. And if we have to do that, then technology will play a role in it. And transformative technologies, whether it is digital technologies, connecting platforms between farmers and end producers, it is biotech technologies, such as a company you will meet this evening, Perfect Day, who has created proteins coming out of yeast and other microorganisms. But we believe that technology is going to play a role. We believe that our solution will come from technology, not running away from technology, but we also have to be transparent about communication. Technologies are not just creating new kinds of things, but also addressing food safety issues. Vertical farms are an example of technology for us, and how do you connect various different technologies together. So our fourth theme is around transformative technologies that we continue to invest in. I already talked about some of these things, so I will probably not repeat this over here. You all are fairly familiar with the demand for protein, as well as the environmental impact that protein today causes around the world. The fresh produce, these are some of the statistics that we have over here in terms of the consumption requirement for fresh produce. Now, these statistics are global statistics. The WHO recommends that we should have more fresh produce, 400 grams. By the way, this statistic, if you go in East Asia, is much worse. And East Asia is where I think Singapore and Southeast Asia gets combined in the WHO numbers. We have a deficit of fresh greens and fresh vegetables that we eat in this part of the world as well. So we also feel that some of these businesses are actually also interesting businesses and profitable businesses. So an avocado farm can earn very good margins, a blueberry farm can earn very good margins, and therefore are good for farmers as well, not just for the consumers. We talked about healthy proteins. There are a lot of consumer trends around going away to simpler foods, natural foods. Not all of these are science-based, but certainly consumers want less of artificial colors, less chemical-free. So we believe that there has to be innovations around that as well coming in.